The rain did not just fall that night. It pressed in. It felt like a living thing. The kind of rain that swallows the streetlights and wipes faces from windows and makes familiar corners look like open mouths. I did not notice it at first. I thought it was a regular storm, the sort you sleep through. I was wrong. If you listen closely to what I'm about to tell you, you will know the moment that rain changed and the night stopped being ordinary. You will know it the way I knew it, deep in the body, in the place that clenches before you even hear your name. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel before listening to the story, because there are many more scary stories coming. All right, that line matters to me. I promised the guys I would say it out loud no matter what, because once you hear this, you might think I am trying to sell you something. I am not. I would pay to forget it. I would pay a lot. You asked me for the real story. No flourishes, no old family curses, just what happened. I will tell you exactly what I told the police and what I could not say when my sister called me from Boston and asked why I sounded like there were other people in the room. My sister is the sort of person who hears shapes in silence. She asked, "Are you alone?" I told her yes. I told her I was fine. I told her the storm was loud and the power was flickering, but I was fine. My name is Alex. I live in a small second-floor apartment above a closed bakery on a side street in New Haven. The building has bones, old wood, pipes that complain, a hallway that folds sound so you can never tell if the footsteps you hear are above you or behind you or inside your chest. If you ever walk there at night, you will understand what I mean. Somewhere a door always seems open. Somewhere something always seems to be moving just out of view. It is not haunted. It is old. There is a difference. I work late in a lab not far from the hospital. That night, I came home after a 10-hour shift soaked to the ankles. The rain started before sunset, and by the time I parked under the elm tree, it had become bright and heavy like someone was shining a flashlight through it. The kind of rain that makes each drop its own bead of glass. I jogged the last 50 feet, zipped my jacket up to my throat, stared at my keys longer than necessary under the dim blue light of the entry. The hallway door stuck the way it always does when it rains. I put my shoulder to it. It gave with a sound like a grown person sighing into the next room. Somewhere upstairs, a dog yelped once and then went quiet. I live alone, which, I should say, had never bothered me before. I like the noise of other people at a distance, laughing on the sidewalk, traffic, the clang of a trash can lid. I love it even at night. But the storm pressed those sounds down and put something else in their place. If you have ever been in a house when a storm moves over it, you know that sensation, that unsteady breathing of a building. The glass in the windows made a thin, unsure sound. The fan above my stove ticked a lazy clock. The smell of wet flour came up from the dead bakery. It made the whole apartment smell like someone had put water in their hands and slapped it on a counter. I remember thinking I should text my neighbor and make a joke about it. I did not. The first odd thing was small. I tossed my keys in the bowl by the door, turned to hang my jacket, and the keys did not clatter the way they always do. The bowl is a chipped blue ceramic thing my mom found at a yard sale. It rings like a bell when you drop coins in it. This time the sound was soft, dull, as if someone had put a kitchen towel in the bowl. I went to look. Nothing in there, but the keys. When I lifted them out, the metal left a wet ring on the ceramic like it had been sitting in water. I told myself it was the storm and my soaked sleeves. I dried the bowl. I sent water to boil for pasta and turned on the small lamp by the couch. The power dipped when the kettle started and the lamp blinked out for a second, then back. In that blink, I saw, or I thought I saw, the shape of a person in the window opposite the couch. Look, this is the part where people always say, it was a reflection. This is the part where you would pause a video and say, that is just the lamp. But the lamp was off in that blink. The streetlight outside threw pale watercolor through the glass. The shape was a shoulder and a head turned toward the street. The blind was drawn most of the way down, so I couldn't tell if the figure was on my side or the other side of the glass. I did what everyone does. I stepped forward fast and pulled the blind up with a snap. My breath flogged the glass. The elm tree thrashed its leaves. The street was empty. I ate standing at the counter because the couch felt too far from the door. Maybe you know that feeling. You keep finding reasons to stand somewhere you can see the exit. I told myself I was tired. That is a reasonable explanation for almost anything. Tired people hear their name in water pipes. Tired people read faces in curtains. I washed the bowl. I texted my sister a photo of the rain coming down like a white sheet. She texted back a lightning bolt emoji and said I should make tea and watch a stupid movie. I told her I might do that. When I turned into the short hall toward my bedroom, I heard it. A sound like someone dragging a wool colt down a wall. It came from the far end of the hall near the closet that holds the breaker box. My hallway is narrow, painted a color called eggshell on the paint can, and the closet door is an old thing with a latch that sticks. In the night, it is easy to think of that closet as a little mouth. It breathes dust. It eats light. That sound, the dragging colt sound, was brief, then silent, then a soft click from inside the closet. Not the latch, a light switch. I stopped. The hair on my arm stood up like bristles and stayed like that. I waited a good count of 5. I said hello to my own hallway and hated myself for it. What did I think would happen? That someone would say, "Hey man, wrong apartment." That is a thing. I was not ready to be afraid of something I could talk to. I stepped forward, and the floor under my right foot felt different. Not loose, not broken, different, as if the board had swollen more than the others. It gave a slow, long creak, a voice you only hear twice a year, once when the summer heat finds its bones, and once when the rain pushes its way in. I put my hand on the closet door, and the latch was not in place at all. The door was sitting there, just a little open, the thickness of a fingernail. I could see the black shape of the fuse box. I could see the metal cover. I could not see the light switch that had clicked. I told myself mouse. I told myself old wire. I told myself anything that made sense. I do not live in a horror movie. I live on a street with a pizza place and a bar that has trivia on Wednesdays. I opened the closet. The smell inside was wet cardboard and iron. There was no light switch in there. There never had been. The only switch on that wall was outside the closet, near the bedroom, and it was down, off. I stood very still and listened the way you listen when you're trying to catch your own heartbeat. Something ticked. Not a clock, not the fan. A drip. From the far back corner of the closet where there is no pipe. I set my phone to flashlight and leaned in. There was nothing to see. Bare floor, bare wall. The drip had no source. The sound seemed to fold out from the corner like it was being played through a speaker hidden in the paint. When I pulled my head back and took a breath, I knocked the broom that leans in there and it slid down and tapped the floor. That sound was sharp and real, and it made the drip seem more impossible. I closed the door and pushed the latch down until it clicked. I slept, or something like sleep, a heavy drifting that never reached the deep part. I woke 3 times, convinced someone had whispered just outside my bedroom. The word was not my name. It was not any word I recognize. It sounded like someone trying to tell me to wait. I do not speak another language. I only know that the last syllable had the shape of a plea. I turned my radio to the local station for background noise. It was static and a weather warning. The power dipped again and the radio shrank to a small square of orange light and then grew back to its normal face. At some point, I closed my eyes and my jaw unclenched. When I woke, it was not to sound. It was to temperature. The room had grown colder, the kind of cold you feel in the teeth. My bedside clock said 2:48. I sat up and saw the hallway light was on, a soft, yellow, steady light that made the bedroom doorframe look like a picture painted of a door. I never leave that light on. I keep my bills low. I swung my legs over the side, and the boards were cold, true cold, outside cold, which made no sense. I smelled wet leaves. I stepped into the hall, and the light hummed, the way lights do in very quiet rooms. The closet door was open, the latch had been turned, and the door pushed all the way until it touched the stopper. I stopped the way a person stops when they realize their plate is different than the one they set on the table. Someone will say here that I must have left it open. I will tell you I did not, and it would not matter if I had, because on the inside of that door, halfway up, there were 4 long dark streaks from the edge toward the center. I thought at first they were dirt marks from my hands. I put my hand beside one. My fingers did not match the spacing. The streaks had the width of someone pressing with the side of a hand and then pulling. But why would someone do that on the inside of a closet door? The drip in the back corner kept its slow metronome. Now, however, the sound did not seem to resolve in the corner itself. It was a little to the left, then it was a little to the right. If you have ever stood in a room with another living thing that refuses to show itself, you will recognize what I'm trying to say. The drip was not moving. Something else was moving past it. The sound leaned away from me. It leaned back. I said, "I am calling the police." I said it in a calm voice, the sort of voice you use with a stubborn dog. I held my phone up. The screen showed no bars, not one. That was not unusual in a storm like this, but the timing made my mouth go dry. I took one more step and the hallway light dimmed and then returned to normal. In the dim, I saw my breath. Not a lot, a little smoke, the way you do on the first cold morning of fall when you forget your jacket and run to the car. I heard the sound again, the coat dragging sound, only now it was longer and closer, and I could tell it was not fabric, it was skin. The wall was not touched. The sound came from inside the hall itself, the way a soft voice is not in your ear or the room, but in the part of your head that listens. That was when I did something I had not done since I was a kid. I said, "Please." I said, "I live here. I do not know what you want." There was no reply. The light kept humming. The rain found a new intensity and flung itself at the windows with enough force that I felt a pressure change. The radio in the bedroom went silent, and at the same time as if the radio had taken the sound with it, I realized something I had missed since before I went to sleep. The building had been quiet for too long. No pipes, no elevator, no wind in the vent. Quiet is a thing you notice when it's wrong. It makes the body think of a mouth that has been closed too long. It occurred to me then that water might be coming in from the roof, that there was a real explanation for all this, and it was stupid of me to stand in a hall like a child afraid of the dark. I went back to the kitchen and got the step stool and the flashlight. I would check the ceiling in the closet. I would find wet plaster. I would text my landlord and wait for morning. The timer on the stove, which I had never set, was at 0. The small lamp by the couch glowed like a resting eye. I put the step stool in the closet. I put my hand on the top step and took a breath and climbed. The ceiling is low in there. When I am on the top step, my head is an inch from the plaster. I brought the light up and scanned the seam where the ceiling meets the wall. Nothing. No discoloration, no bubble. I felt a strange relief and then an irritation so sharp it felt like embarrassment. I had frightened myself with nothing. I started down and the stool rocked as if something had touched it. Not a slip, a nudge. I shot a hand out and caught the door frame and banged my wrist, and the flashlight fell and bounced and went out.
I swore so loud that the dog upstairs started barking. In the dark, the drip sounded like a clock in another room. I waited for my breath to slow, and then I stepped down the rest of the way and felt the floor with my foot. And when I put weight on it, the board that had creaked earlier did not creak. It made no sound at all. It felt like a mouth that had been open had closed. I picked up the flashlight and it came back on without me touching the switch. The beam swung up and my heart did something painful in my chest. There were wet footprints in the hallway. Not puddles, prints. Bare feet. From my bedroom doorway, past the closet, and toward the living room. Not mine. Too long. The arch too narrow. The toes too straight. I do not know how else to say that. They were the kind of prints that make you understand a person by how they carry their weight. Whoever made them carried their weight on the balls of their feet like they did not trust their heels. There were only 4 sets of prints. Bedroom to living room. On the way back, nothing. I did not chase them. I did not step in them. I did not test the water to see if it was real. I followed them to the threshold of the living room, and I stopped and looked in. The blind on the big window was all the way up now. I had closed it again earlier after the blink. It was up. The window itself was shut. The streetlight made a pale square on the floor, and in that square was a darker shape, like a person had stood there and then stepped out of their image and left the image behind. I watched it and thought I saw it move the tiniest bit, like heat. I said, "You cannot be here." I said, "I do not know what you want." The shape did not care about my words. It did not make a sound. It had the feeling of a person who was already on the other side of a decision. The radio snapped back on with a burst of static and a voice reading numbers. The voice sounded like someone learning to speak again after a long illness. Rainfall totals, road closures, a warning to stay away from low-lying areas near the river. The voice cut out and became music, something soft on piano, and the small lamp by the couch flickered a slow pulse in time with nothing at all. In that flicker, I saw not a person, not a face, something like a hand on the back of the couch, resting. The way you rest your hand on a chair while you think about leaving. I took one step back. The hallway light fluttered. The drip stopped. When you are very tired, your mind tries to arrange the world into something it can bear. I wanted a reason. I wanted a bad guy. I wanted a stranger in my house because that would mean locks and phones and sirens. This was not that. This was the way a room feels after someone you love has left it. Not empty, marked. The air had weight. It pressed the shirts in the closet down. It pressed my thoughts into small, hard shapes. I did the one thing that still felt like action. I talked. I said, "There is nothing here for you." I said, "I am sorry if I'm in the way." I said, "I will leave if you need me to." The words were stupid and simple and made for a child. And they made a difference. The shape in the square of window light thinned and slid toward the streaked glass. As it did, the rain on the window seemed to pause and then run double fast, the way a crowd moves when someone tries to push through it. The small lamp steadied. The radio found its station. I should have stayed quiet then. I know that now. But the relief that came into me needed something to lean against, and I leaned it against my own voice. I said, "Who are you?" I said, "What do you want?" I said those last two words with the kind of frustration, like a landlord, and that was a mistake. The shape stopped and swelled. Not big, just a little, as if it inhaled. Then there was a sound that was not a sound, only a shape in the air like a word that had not been finished being born. The shape turned from the window and faced the hall. The cold came back into my teeth. It crossed the floor. There was no sound of feet. Only the living room air moved as if a person carves the air by being in it. It came to the threshold and stopped there like an obedient guest. There is a rule in my building that you take off your shoes when you step onto the old wood. The prints at my back were bare. I wondered if whoever left them had been following the rule. Do not laugh. You look for anything that makes a shape out of the fear.
It leaned in. I did not step back. My body would not give me that gift. Up close, the sense of it sharpened. It did not smell like rot. It did not smell like the river. It smelled like clothes that had been hung in rain and brought inside too soon. I could feel it trying to find me, the way you reach in a drawer without a light. Its attention touched my shoulder, and then my throat, and then my cheek, and moved on. And that movement was so intimate that my eyes flooded and my mouth filled with the taste of iron. The power went out. Not a blink this time. A cut. The radio died mid-note. The small lamp went dark. The hallway light became a black glass shape that held my reflection. Outside, the rain swallowed the streetlight completely. The only light anywhere was the pale square of the window, and even that went gray and then almost gone. I remember thinking that the world had narrowed to the size of a breath. I waited for it to touch me again. In the narrow dark, I heard the coat dragging sound, very close, and then the faintest sound of fingers gliding along the wall. Remember those 4 streaks on the inside of the closet door? I knew in my bones that the same hand was now near my face. It was at the level of my mouth. It moved past my ear, slow and patient. I wanted to scream. I could not. My tongue felt like it belonged to a different person who did not want to use it. The voice came at last. It did not belong to a living throat. It was the shape of breath pushed through an instrument. It said, in the way a person speaks who does not know if they are heard, "Not yours. Not yours." Over and over, not angry, not pleading, not anything you could name, just a rule spoken out loud. Not yours. The first time I understood the words, the cold went deeper, beyond teeth, into bone. That was not the worst part. The worst part is what came after. The voice fell quiet. The presence pulled back. The prints on the floor gleamed and faded and were gone. The rain gentled. The power came back in a low sigh and then a full sound. Lights surged. The radio found a commercial about lawn care. The small lamp glowed warm. The building breathed and went back to itself. And in the middle of that, the wrongness did not leave. It had only softened. It had changed shape. I understood the way you understand when you finally look at the thing you have been trying not to look at. The voice had not been speaking to me. It had been speaking about me. Not yours. Said to whom? I did not sleep. I sat on the floor with my back against the bedroom door and let the radio talk to me. I saw the sky go light behind the elm and then go gray as more rain swept in. At 7, my neighbor came down the stairs and knocked on my door and asked if my power had gone out. I said it had. I asked if she had felt that cold. She looked at me the way you look at someone who was having a tough time.
She said, "Storms make the old places feel strange." She said, "You want coffee?" I said no. I did not want to go into any room that was not mine. At 9, I called my landlord and told him about water coming in the closet. He came at noon with a tool bag and a quick smile and the unconscious confidence of a person who has never had to be afraid of the dark. He pried the closet door latch to keep it from sticking and tapped the plaster with his knuckles and said it was fine. He asked if I had a leak in the sink because he could smell something like iron. I said I spilled tomato sauce. He laughed. He told me to call if the power blinked again. He was kind. He did not see the 4 faint streaks left on the inside of the door, even after I had wiped them. He closed the closet and the latch sat right without help. I tried to go on with my day. I showered, I made toast, I turned the radio off and then back on because the silence felt like a door waiting to be opened. By evening, the storm had returned, softer now, a steady hiss. People in the bar around the corner came out with jackets over their heads and shouted to friends across the street. The city had life again. My apartment did not. It felt like a museum that had just closed. The air was that particular kind of empty that is not empty at all. I decided to sleep at a friend's place. I packed a bag and put my shoes on, and then stood in the hall and realized I could not leave. Not yet. Because the radio had gone quiet on its own, because the closet door was open again, because from the dark inside came that patient drip, left, right, center, the sound of attention moving, and because beneath that sound, almost too soft to hear, there was another voice. It was lower, not a throat, a floorboard. Wood speaking after years of being walked by the same person. It spoke in the way wood speaks when a chair remembers its owner. I don't mean it used words, I mean the shape of it was possession. It said, mine. It said it by existing. It said it the way a wall says it, by holding up a roof. And in that instant, I understood the thing I had been trying not to let into my head. The voice in the night had not been warning me. It had been setting a boundary, not yours, to something that was trying to take me, the something in my apartment that knew this place as its own, had drawn a line and said, no. I wish that was the end. I wish I could tell you I moved the next day and left the city and learned to sleep again. The truth is worse and smaller. I stayed. I still live above that bakery. Not every night is like that one. Most nights are normal. I hear the elevator, I hear the upstairs dog, I make pasta and the bowl rings right when I drop the keys. But there are nights when the rain comes the way it did then, and the hallway light hums, and the closet door does not want to stay shut. On those nights, the air remembers. The apartment makes a shape of a person who used to live here or never lived at all but belongs here more than I do. And sometimes when I am almost asleep, I hear a soft voice from the living room. Not words, the shape of a boundary. I lie very still and I do not answer, and the cold passes over my mouth like a hand that will not let me speak. I told the police once. After a week of short sleep and long nerves, I went to the station and I told a detective with tired eyes that someone might have been in my apartment. He said storms make people call. He said I could get the locks changed if it made me feel better. I did. It made no difference. The locks matter to doors. They do not matter to the other thing. Why am I telling you this now? Because last night, something changed. The prints came back. Same shape, same weight on the balls of the feet. This time, there were more of them. Not a lot. Enough to show a path. From the window to the kitchen, from the kitchen to the hall, from the hall to the closet. At the closet, they stopped and turned and went back to the bedroom. I followed them like a kid follows the path of a maze with his finger. In the bedroom, they ended at the side of the bed and at the place where my shoes sit. One print crossed the threshold of the bathroom and then was gone. I stood there a long time. I could hear the radio downstairs in the bakery through the old vents. Someone must have left it on. A ball game or a talk show or something. The closet door in the hall was closed and the latch was set. I stared at my bed. The sheet lifted the tiniest bit, as if someone had taken a breath under it. I do not mean I saw it move. I mean the feeling of the room said it did. I said the only words I could think to say. Not yours. My voice shook. It sounded like I had been given lines in a play I did not understand. The apartment listened the way a room listens when you finally say the thing that fits. The cold pulled back. The radio in the vents went quiet. Somewhere in the building, a distant door opened and closed. I slept then, for an hour. In that hour, I dreamed the rain was glass, and the glass was pouring into the room and making a shape on the floor like a person made of window. The person leaned over me and put their hand just above my mouth and held it there and waited for me to breathe out. And when I did, the shape took that breath and folded it into its own chest, and I woke with the taste of iron, and the sense that something had been taken, and I would not know what until I needed it. I got up and came here. That is the honest way to say this. I came to tell you because you asked for a true story that would make your skin crawl. I can give you that. But if you want to know the worst part, it is not the prince or the voice or the light or the hand that would not let me speak. It is that I do not know which is more frightening, the thing that came to take me or the thing that lives with me that will not let it. I do not know which side I should hope for when the rain comes hard and the hallway light hums and a drip moves in an empty corner as if it is deciding whether to stay or go. I only know that some nights I hear two breaths at once, one near the window and one by the closet, and the room holds both the way a lung holds air. On those nights, I say nothing. I lie on my back with my hands at my sides, and I remember the words I was given, and I do not speak them out loud because the door knows them now. The walls know them. The floor does too. The building has taken them into itself and says them for me when I can't not sleep. Sometimes the rain lets up, and the streetlights come back, and the elm stops lifting its arms, and the bakery smells like sugar again, and the radio plays a dumb commercial, and I tell myself I imagined it all. Then I walk past the closet and see a new faint streak on the inside of the door. 5 now, not 4. And I know that last night was not a dream. Someone else is here. Someone patient. Someone who believes my breath is not mine. And someone who believes it is. If you come by some night when the rain holds the streets, you can sit on my couch and listen. You can hear the building breathe. You can watch the shade of the window glow a pale square on the floor. You can wait. After a while, if the apartment decides you are the sort of person who can hear shapes in silence, you will hear the rule spoken just once, in a voice like a hand drawing lines in dust. Not yours. It will not be meant for you. It will be meant for the other thing that came inside with the rain and did not leave when the morning came. You will want to run. You will not. You will sit very still and you will understand that the scariest part of living alone is not being alone. It is realizing that the house has already chosen a side and you do not get to know which one until something reaches for you in the dark and the dark answers back.